Welcome to understanding of advancing your hands with listening techniques too. You know, after you've had the level 1 class, that's all we developed initially. And there were so many requests that came in for having more time with you as instructors that had some more experience. And so having more time after you have taken the LT1 class to develop our hands. We're developing the knowledge around the anatomy of our bodies. And as manual therapists, again, kind of slowing down the curriculum, it's like, how do we develop our hands? So when you initially come back, are we going to continue our general listening? Absolutely. But we help develop the possibilities or scenarios of more challenged patients. So those that have, we go into functional listening. We go into what if someone has an endocrine type of problem, and there might be 1 or 2 or 3 organs involved in that system. So we enhance your skills with a little bit more of problem solving with our patients and clients that come in. But we also want to help you develop your hands. So our first section in LT2 is our hands, our tools. And I named it that just in response to when I was writing Jean-Pierre many years ago. Maybe I had a problem to solve with somebody, and how could you help me? What I'm looking for, he said, Gail, my hands are my only tools. And I just loved that phrase enough to put it into having people have some of our experiences as teachers to bring forth to you. So, you know, in some of our classes, we have pearls of wisdom from Jean-Pierre. And this one, our hands, our tools, is what we share with you in the beginning. And I have a book here that says it all. Here's our hands, even though thermography, we're trying to feel through our hands, and we're looking inside the body, even to the point of what an organ would be. Then I wonder about the cellular function of that organ. So we help you get into the physiology of someone's body in regards to trying to know it a little bit better, or at least where can I go for resources to study this more. So our hands are tools to the point of even understanding the receptors. So for those of you who've had BM5, we talk about the different mechanoreceptors, proprioceptors, baroreceptors in the body. And then what is it that is more individualistic in our hands? So we go over those receptors in our hands and what might be determine what is more cold, or what is more hot, what are the temperature variants in the receptors in the hands, Pacini receptors, that helps us determine rhythm in the body, vibration, if something's going through the body quickly, speed. So there's different receptors that, how does that connect up to the brain and back to our hand? So we go into the significance of touch and how we can develop that. So we welcome you on our first day into understanding your hands. It helps us also understand where you are. Again, this part of the program slows down a little bit. And once we hear your questions from listening techniques 1, because it's much more of an evaluation procedure. How do we put it all together? What is the integration comes in to these 2 classes? And so in LT2, we slow down enough to get a sense of how you are doing. How can we help you with the development of your hands, or anatomy, or difficulty in identifying a restriction in certain areas in the body, so that we slow down enough to take some time with you individually in that quest to understand the voyage, the incredible voyage that we talked about in LT1. Our goal in LT2 is to get a clear message from the body into our hands, to able to determine, as we look subjectively and we're hearing what the person is complaining about, objectively, as we do evaluations of range of motion and determine sites of restriction on the musculoskeletal system. But now we're listening with our hands and objectively getting, I wonder what the depth of the inside of the body is saying to us in its message to us. So we're finding the primary still, we're finding the local site of, I wonder what it has affected, and then how it's affected. In LT1, it was like how it affects the relationship in the body, and in LT2, how it affects perhaps the physiology of that particular organ, cellular function. Is it metabolic dysfunction? Is it with the endocrine system? It's within the nervous system. It's within the vascular system. So we help expand on your what it might be and how it affects the body. So within the class, we enhance your manual mechanical tissue dialogue. Is it more of a reflexive response, or is it actual the continuity of the connective tissue that brings us to that attraction, that site of interest? So I also discuss, all of us in the listening classes in LT2 will discuss the research, the latest research and update about fascia, how it trauma alters the properties of connective tissue, how an excess load will stress that tissue, and what is the dynamics of that to possibly not allow appropriate viscoelasticity to occur as a result of these restrictions. So we get you into the outside parenchyma, and then inside the possibility of listening to, I wonder how that affects the body. What are their clinical signs and symptoms as well? And then as we go into the systems, we ask you to feel for, like if there's similarities within an organ system. So there's been an attraction to the liver, and maybe that's your primary organ involved. And then the next time the person comes in, the liver's still an attraction. And not only is the liver an attraction, I wonder if there's a association with another organ. So maybe the pancreas is involved or the gallbladder is involved. And you find that maybe the liver and the gallbladder are the two most restrictive sites. How do they work with each other? Are they working with detoxification? Are they working on the metabolic system? Are they working on digestion? What is the person's perhaps chief complaint? And you see that there might be 1, 2, or 3 organs involved with that person's difficulties. So we kind of spread out the idea of working with systems in the body. We start to become more functional in LT2. We also talk about spaces in between the organs and how important they are. So for instance, you learn about the stomach and what abilities for that range of motion should be. And we learned about the omental bursa behind and how we need that not to cause pressure on the pancreas. So if we are taken by our hand in an attraction to a space differential, then we want to listen to that and see what would we be doing in relationship to the pancreas and the stomach to help create that space. Space in the abdominal organ, space in the pelvic organs. Each of them need their space for the property of elimination. The bladder won't empty as much if we have a bowel movement in the rectum and anal canal that is constipated and is taking up some space. So we want to create space, and we want to have your awareness be aware that the listening could take you to a space. And then we continue on as we listen to the central nervous system in LT1. In LT2, we bring it into the dura, the 3 different layers of the dura. Is it the actual dura mater itself? Is it the pia mater? Is it the subarachnoid space? Does it take us into the space of the pia, taking us into the glial cells now? So we're getting you into more detail of the dura, detail of a cranial nerve to help prepare you for NM4 and the cranial nerve section. And so the cranial nerve will take you through the trigeminal nerve specifically, so you understand how to feel for that. And then we take you into the brain, a little bit more with the listening into the individuality of not only do I recognize from a local listening in the cranium that it takes us deeper than the sutures or the bone structure or the dura. So you're identifying the difference between what the cells in the brain feel like versus a little bit more of the frame on the outside. But I wonder what sections in the brain it's taking us to. So we go through, if we're attracted to the prefrontal cortex, what is the function of the prefrontal cortex lobe? If it takes us to the parietal, what is the function of the parietal lobe? and et cetera, into the occipital. What if a basal ganglia? What if it takes you into the limbic? So it's in preparation for understanding the complications the person may have come in with from a trauma, injury. Did it turn into a concussion? Does it become a mild traumatic brain injury or moderate? So we're working with the functionality of our listening hands into the function of neuroanatomy. And that's very exciting. It's very exciting. This is a definite lead into what Jean-Pierre is teaching now in his classes that he's sharing with us. So it's a summary of brain functions in the individual lobes. And then we go into the endocrine system. Jean-Pierre also has a class more detailed into an endocrine system. This is the onset of knowing which particular glands might be in the endocrine system, how the messages go through the hormones in the system, and how we can have an effect through the ovaries and the prostate and the uterus or the adrenal glands, the pancreas, the thyroid, and into the pituitary, hypothalamus, and pineal glands as a major communication for our endocrine system. So this was exciting. It was actually my patients who brought us into the world of so much women's health, and that it went beyond just the organ position. Perhaps they're infertile and there were some endocrine problems. I just wanted to know what we could do with that. I met with Jean-Pierre and we talked about at least an opening introduction into the LT2 as he was developing his class. So you'll get that here in LT2. And then one other section that we go into to help make it become a little bit more systemic and functional for you is that you're introduced in VM3 and VM4 into the plexuses of our body. And now we're bringing it into the LT2 class to make it more of a unit. So we teach all the different plexuses in the body. What are the cervical plexi, its relationship to the cranium, cervical plexi in relationship to the stellate ganglion, what those particular functions are within that plexi, and how you can look at it as a whole system in the body, rather than I'm going to just work with the plexi that's in the thorax, which is great because it's a balance. It's a way to balance the sympathetic and parasympathetic system. But now we're looking at as does our listening take us into a plexi? And then the celiac will affect the cardiac, which will affect some of the chain that's within the cervical plexi. So we help bring that all together for you as well. So those are the intricacies that's in LT2, and we welcome you to this particular course. And it really does a great in integration and advancements of your manual skills.